So hey viewers, the series name is What If Naruto Was in Catwoman World, so let's start the series. Naruto Uzumaki shivered as he sat against a tree clutching the forbidden scroll of seals, desperately hoping that neither Irika or Mizuki found him, as his mind began drifting to earlier today, and how all of this started in the first place. Today had been the day of the graduation exam, where academy students would get the chance to become genin, though for the whiskered blonde, this was also the third time he'd taken the exam, having failed it 2 times before, with him hoping to finally pass and become a ninja only to fail once again since he couldn't perform the clone jutsu, leading to him sitting outside the academy with a downcast expression as he watched the other kids who graduated being congratulated by their families while he was alone as usual, as well doing his best to block out the whispers he could hear from the adults, having grown used to them by this point. Though it was then that one of his teachers, Mizuki, showed up and told the Uzumaki about a secret test he could take to become a genin, as all he has to do was steal the forbidden scroll from the Hokage's office, then take it into the forest and learn a single jutsu from it in order to pass. This had obviously excited the preteen, learning that he's finally getting the chance to become a ninja, and eagerly accepted the assignment with him being able to steal the scroll, but was nearly caught by the Sandaime Hokage, but was able to take him out with his sexy jutsu and make it to the forest at the instructed location, where he'd looked through the forbidden scroll and eventually found the shadow clone jutsu, which he was actually able to master in a short amount of time. Unfortunately, that's when things started going downhill, as his other teacher, Irika Umino, one of the few people who was nice to him, showed up rather than Mizuki while demanding to know why he stole the forbidden scroll, as the blonde Uzumaki told him about the secret test given to him, which only confused the scarred Chunin before it became clear on what's happening when the white-haired instructor showed up and attacked them. But that wasn't all that happened, with the traitorous Chunin also revealing the reason why everyone hated him. You are the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko, the same beast that had attacked Konoha 12 years ago. He'd declared, as that had shocked the young Uzumaki to finally know why he was hated and isolated by the villagers, as this had also left him open for the academy instructor to try and kill him, only for Irika to quickly jump in the way of the shuriken, taking the hit meant for his student, who was now freaking out, and did the only thing he could think of, which was running as fast as he could to get away, leading to his current predicament of hiding from both Chunins, as fear was filling him as he worried that if they found him, that he'll be killed, before suddenly stiffening when he heard them arrive at his location, though they didn't seem to have found him yet, thankfully. You're a fool, Irika! Mizuki exclaimed as he glared at his former comrade since he'd ruined his plans. Why are you protecting that freak? He's the one that wiped out your family, he added, as he was angry that the scarred sensei was still defending the demon brat after everything he's done. Staring down his former assistant, Irika drew out his kunai ready to defend himself. I don't care what you say, you're not getting your hands on that scroll, he declared, unaware that Naruto, looking down at hearing that he only cared about making sure Mizuki didn't get the scroll. As if you could stop me, the white-haired traitor stated as he gave the academy instructor an arrogant smirk. Don't you get it? Naruto is just like me, since he wants the scroll for his own power as well his own vengeance, since that's how beasts are, as he'll pour all his rage into the scroll and destroy everything, he stated, with the brown-haired Chunin glaring at him, knowing that his student would never do something like that since he wasn't the Kyuubi. You're right, Irika stated, making the unseen Uzumaki gasp in shock and hurt at what he just said. Lowering his head, the whiskered blonde clenched his hand as tears began rolling down his face. So, it's true, Irika-sensei never believed in me. He thinks I'm the Kyuubi, a monster, just like everyone else, he thought, as his heart ached with hurt and betrayal, since everything he knew was all just a lie. That is how beasts are, the scarred sensei stated, knowing for a fact his student was nothing like that, and was about to tell Mizuki just that, only for his former assistant to grin wickedly. Glad we could finally agree on something, Irika. Now you've interfered long enough, Mizuki exclaimed while grabbing his second shuriken as he threw it at the shocked Chunin, as he began gasping in pain as the bladed star weapon stabbed into his chest, as Naruto's eyes widened in fear at seeing his sensei dropped down dead. He immediately got up and began running, as this caught the traitor's attention. There you are, Kyuubi brat. Now give me that scroll, he demanded with a dark chuckle as he began running after the Jinchuriki. Looking back, Naruto saw that his former teacher was chasing him with weapons drawn. Gotta get away, gotta get away, gotta get away, he mentally chanted, trying to run faster, knowing that he'll soon be dead if he gets caught. Unfortunately, Mizuki proved to be faster than him as the Chunin quickly closed the distance between them. "Guide you now, demon," he maliciously exclaimed as he reached out to grab the whiskered blonde, making his eyes widen at how close the Chunin suddenly caught up to him. Knowing what would happen once he was caught, the Uzumaki felt fear and adrenaline rush through his body as he did the only thing that he could think of in order to save himself, as he reached into his weapon pouch and pulled out a kunai and threw it right into Mizuki's throat, shocking the both of them as he stopped to watch as his former sensei choked and gagged on his own blood before his body went completely still. Seeing the dead body of his traitorous teacher, the whiskered blonde began trembling as he fell to his knees. What did I do?" he thought in panic while staring at the dead body, as he was having trouble realizing that he just killed someone before eventually standing back up as he began running again, wanting to get away from Konoha. Knowing that now he couldn't go back after what happened, knowing the villagers would defiantly blame him for killing Irika. Not that it really matters, since if Irika had been lying about caring about him, then what about Old Man Hokage? Or Tuchi and Iam? How did he know that they all weren't just tricking him, trying to keep the monster under control? "But what if they come after me? Where am I supposed to hide?" he mentally exclaimed, panicking at the idea of being hunted the rest of his life, or being locked away forever. Needing a plan, Naruto then looked at the forbidden scroll strapped to his back and realized that it contains every jutsu ever used, created, and or taken by Konoha, all written down inside, meaning that there had to be at least one jutsu that could help him, though somewhere that Konoha could never find him. As he pulled it off and began searching through it, looking through dozens of jutsus before eventually finding the one he needed in order to escape. "Here, a space-time ninjutsu," the Uzumaki said to himself as he skimmed over what the jutsu does and where it could take him. Despite most of the writing had begun to fade with age, but he didn't care, since he only saw it was a means of escaping, as he could still make out the instructions of how to perform it. Memorizing the instructions, the blonde Uzumaki strapped the scroll back onto his back before standing back up as he took a breath before going through the required hand signs and channeling all the chakra he could into performing the jutsu, since the scroll said it needed a lot of chakra to perform. And he knows for a fact that he definitely had a lot of chakra as he completed the last hand sign before he vanished in a flash of light, never to be seen in the elemental nations again. Reappearing in a flash of light, Naruto stumbled slightly, trying to regain his bearings as he was feeling disoriented from the sudden teleportation, as he shook his head before looking around to see that he had reappeared in an alleyway. As he looked upward towards the night sky above him, "Kami, where did I end up?" he questioned to himself, looking up at the buildings, which surprised him at seeing at how big they were before jumping up them to get a better view of his location. As he reached the top and looked over the edge, "Oh Kami," he exclaimed with fainted breath, as he was shocked at the sheer size of the city he was in, as the buildings were taller than even the Hokage monument. Taking a moment to calm down from his shock, the Rouge Jinchuriki looked up in the sky as he saw a light appear shining through the night with something within the light. "A bat," he muttered, feeling confused at the purpose, the light and symbol, before looking out over the city. "I'm definitely not in the elemental nations anymore," he added before jumping back down to the ground to find out more of where he was. A month has passed since Naruto had arrived in what he now knew was Gotham City, home of the Batman and dozens of crazed supervillains, and normally he would be excited at the idea of meeting someone like the Dark Knight, who fights just like a ninja as well protects people from villains. But after the incident with Mizuki and Irika, the Uzumaki's normally happy-go-lucky personality began fading away, leaving him more jaded and cynical, with it not helping that the more he learned about the Dark Knight's rogues, with people like Joker, Penguin, and Scarecrow, all of them being people who hurt, kill, torment, and spread misery wherever they go, all while Batman never does anything besides lock them up in Arkham Asylum, only for them to eventually escape, and repeated the entire cycle all over again. It left Naruto with a bad taste in his mouth that lunatics like these were still allowed to live when they've shown that they can't be helped, and know exactly what they're doing, but didn't care since there was nothing he could do for now anyway. Instead, the whiskered blonde began offering himself as a freelance henchman to the Gotham Heroes Rogue Gallery, though never revealing his ability, and hiding his true appearance under a henge. The Jinchuriki doing this in order to learn more about them up close, along with learning about the Batman as well. It didn't take long before Naruto had everything he needed to know, along with learning something every villain would kill to know. He knew that Batman was really Bruce Wayne. He'd figured this out after doing his own research, along with his time having worked for both Two-Face and Catwoman, the former being close to Bruce Wayne prior to his accident, and the latter being close to both Bruce Wayne and Batman with both of her identities. The Uzumaki was actually surprised the two haven't figured it out themselves, especially Catwoman given from the rumors he's heard, and from what he'd seen. Both of her personas were close to Bruce and Batman, yet neither of them have managed to put the pieces together, or perhaps were deluding themselves by refusing to believe that Bruce Wayne, a well-known playboy who enjoyed parties, could ever be the Dark Knight. Currently, Naruto was under another henge of a common street thug and working for the Joker, Batman's worst enemy and a complete psychopath, as it actually made him mentally scoff that any of these villains believed he was loyal to them. Sure, he might have become more cynical, but he would never enjoy the pain and misery they've caused, as they were just useful in helping his own goals, one which he'll be able to complete tonight along with finally putting the Clown Prince of Crime in the ground where he belongs. At the moment, Joker had initiated his latest plot of planting bombs all throughout the city, but rather than simply explode, it would unleash his latest batch of Joker venom, one that wouldn't make people laugh themselves to death, but instead twist their minds to be as crazy as himself while making all of them loyal to him since the venom was made with the Joker's own blood added to it. At least, that's what was supposed to happen if not for the fact Naruto disabled all the bombs while they were being set up and removed all the Joker venom, sealing it away in a storage scroll which he then burned, ensuring it couldn't be a threat to anyone ever again, as the only bomb he didn't disable was the one the clown-themed Psycho had in the hideout that was meant to infect Batman himself, but he had destroyed the venom inside that bomb and turned it into an actual one that'll blow the Clown Prince into pieces once he triggered it. Now all he had to do was wait for the Dark Knight to arrive, take out the Joker and his henchmen, have the bomb be triggered, and then enjoy watching the clown die. As if on cue, Batman burst through a window and began taking out the henchmen, with Naruto slowly moving away from the crowd as he exited the base. I may not like his no-killing rule, but man is he awesome, he thought, even though he didn't agree with the hero's methods of dealing with the city's corrupted. He was still amazed at Batman's abilities, all while being a normal human with no enhancements, as he was outside of the base, and looked around before spotting the Batmobile and ran towards it to start the other part of his plan, since while Batman was busy dealing with the Joker, the whiskered blonde would take the Batmobile and head to the Batcave to steal one of his Batsuits. Knowing this would be risky and definitely have the Gotham City hero on his tail once he figured out what happened, before entering the Bat-themed vehicle as he looked around in amazement as the glass window slid close over him. Okay, now I just have to figure out how to drive this, he mused, looking at all the controls before stopping when he saw a video feed showing a first-person point of view of the Joker getting beaten up. He must have a camera in his cowl, or something? He questioned, figuring it's used to look over all his battles for any mistakes, or things he might have missed, before returning back to watching as the Joker was knocked into a large metal rack, which came crashing down on top of him. As the Uzumaki saw him activate the bomb and knew it was time for him to go, only for his eyes to widen, because instead of seeing Batman escaping the immediate blast, he went over to try and defuse the bomb. No, 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 get out of there! He yelled towards the screen, knowing the bomb couldn't be disabled or shut down since he made sure of it. Thankfully, it seemed Batman realized this as well as he turned away from the bomb, much to the Jinchuriki's relief that he was going to escape, only for his relief to immediately vanish, because rather than escaping, the Dark Knight ran to where the clown Psycho was pinned down and actually tried saving him. No! Let the clown bastard die and get out while you still can! Naruto shouted at the screen, not believing that Batman was risking his life just to save that man. Just leave him and Kablam! ZZTBZZT. The whiskered Uzumaki froze as his eyes widened in horror, seeing the camera feed suddenly turn to static before he slowly looked towards the hideout, seeing it was consumed by fire and quickly collapsing in on itself. Don't be dead, don't be dead, don't be dead, he mentally pleaded, hoping to see Batman come out of the hideout beaten and injured, but still alive. But only he never did. Devastated, Naruto sat there for nearly 10 minutes hoping to see Batman miraculously survive like he's always done, but he didn't see anyone. What did I just do? He muttered under his breath, not believing what he's just done. He just killed Batman. Shakily getting over his severe shock, the blonde preteen turned back to getting the Batmobile started after a few moments to eventually get it to turn on. Thankful when he saw an autopilot feature to take him straight to the Batcave. As the vehicle started moving just as the sounds of police sirens screeched from the distance, as he slumped back in the seat staring ahead while still in shock since he'd only meant for the Joker to die, not for Batman to actually risk his life to try and save him. But he did, and because of him Gotham City just lost its only protector against supervillains. I didn't mean to. I should have been there, or at least leave a shadow clone to convince him to leave the Joker to die. The Uzumaki argued to himself, thinking that he should have done something, and no, there was nothing I could have done to stop him. He would have tried to get the Joker, even if there wasn't a bomb, he added, banging his hands against the windowshield trying to ease his own guilt and rationalize what happened, but believed that perhaps it was for the best that Batman was gone, since his next plan would put him directly into conflict with the Dark Knight, and what hope would he have against someone older and way more experienced than him? Calming down slightly, Naruto pushed his guilt into the back of his mind for the moment, as he pulled into the Batcave to see a middle-aged man dressed in a butler uniform. "Ah, Master Wayne, glad to see you've returned. I take it Joker has been returned to his nice, padded cell at Arkham," the butler said, walking towards the vehicle to greet his master and ward. "Fucking great," Naruto mentally cursed, knowing who that was. Alfred Pennyworth, Bruce Wayne's butler, and the guy who basically raised him after his parents were murdered, with him now responsible for the death of the man he raised as his own son. As he looked around to see what he could use, as the Batmobile slid open and before the elderly man could react, he sprayed a canister of sleep gas in his face as the butler began coughing at the sudden attack before falling backwards unconscious as the whiskered blonde got out of the Batmobile and dropped his hinge now that he was safe from being spotted, before looking at the unconscious man as he took out the video of Bruce's last fight against the Joker and put it next to Alfred, along with writing a note apologizing for what happened, doubting it would help, but knew he needed to do it. Giving the butler a sad look, the Uzumaki kneeled down and placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry, I never meant for it to happen," he apologized before heading over to the display cases containing all the different bat suits, as he couldn't help but sigh as he looked at the suits, knowing it'll take time before he's ready, and who knows what kind of trouble will happen now without Batman to keep the villains in line. But that also made him even more determined, knowing it'd be his responsibility to try and fix things, as he opened one of the cases and took the suit within it, along with grabbing some of the trophies Batman collected from the villains he's defeated, ones that would prove useful, before going over to the Bat computer and downloading everything on it onto a hard drive, records of all the villains he'd faced, to everything he knew from fighting styles, detective skills, and chemistry. Once he had everything he needed, Naruto entered the Batmobile again before driving off, preparing for the fallout of his actions tonight. A woman dressed in a robe stood out on the balcony of Wayne Manor overlooking Gotham from the distance. "This city has really gone to hell without you, Bruce," the woman thought, as she was a beauty standing 5 feet 11 inches in height with a porcelain skin tone, wavy red hair reaching her upper back, and green eyes which shimmers from the tears that slowly leak down her face as she watches the city in chaos. This woman is Kate Kane, Bruce Wayne's cousin, as she stood out of her bedroom looking at the now more chaotic city since the death of both the Batman and the Joker, along with the disappearance of Bruce Wayne, over 8 years ago, even though after Bruce couldn't be found, along with the fact he vanished the same night that Batman died. It didn't take long for people to begin putting the pieces together that Bruce Wayne was Batman. After that, criminals began coming out of the woodworks, no longer having to be afraid of being taken out by the Dark Knight anymore. Not to mention those who wanted to fill the void left behind by the Joker's death, with everyone eager to claim the title as the new top villain in Gotham, with the police being stretched extremely thin by just trying to contain the rising crime as well not being able to stop it. While Kate had returned to Gotham after learning of her cousin's death, and the revelation he was Batman, claiming both Wayne Manor and Bruce's place at Wayne Enterprises, refusing to let Bruce's home be sold or taken by those eager to find where the Batcave was, along with making sure Wayne Enterprise remained what Bruce wanted it to be, something to help the people of Gotham. Thankfully she had Lucius and Alfred to help her along the way, both of whom were also saddened at Bruce's death, but understanding as she understood when Alfred showed her the recording of just how Bruce died. "You should have just let the clown die," she said while sighing solemnly as she crossed her arms, as she had also searched for the Batcave. only so she could clear it out and lock away everything inside so it didn't fall into the wrong hands. Only for Alfred to show her where the cave was and found it completely empty, with the butler telling her how he intended to clear it out one day, only to find that everything inside was already taken, which he could only assume was done by the same person who left him the recording of Batman's last fight. "Kate, come back to bed," a stern woman's voice moaned from their bed, missing the warmth of her lover's body. The redette turned her head towards the bed. "I'll be there in a minute," she replied back to her girlfriend before looking out the window one last time. "I don't know who you are, or what you're doing, but I just hope you'll be able to continue his legacy," she thought, hoping that whoever caused Bruce's death, they would really do want to try and make things better. Meanwhile, a young woman with a light skin tone, long wavy orange hair reaching her middle back, and blue eyes that held worry and concern sighed as she laid on her bed while constantly looking at the clock, waiting for her father to get off work and come home. This girl is Barbara Gordon. And this was something that she's become more and more worried about every day now, having to wonder if it'll be an officer arriving to tell her father was dead, killed by some common criminal, or a supervillain, since the death of Batman and Joker created a power vacuum with many people eager to fill it now that the Dark Knight couldn't stop them, nor worry about being killed by the Joker, as this has made her father very stressed out, with it showing more and more every day. What was that, Pam?" Barbara asked, being pulled from her thoughts as she looked at her computer, as she's having a video chat with her friend, another woman her age but with pale porcelain skin, wavy rose-red hair that reaches her upper back, and forest green eyes. "This girl is Pamela Isley," as she sighed at seeing her friend being distracted but knew what it was about. "It's your dad again, isn't it?" she stated, with the orangeette looking down and nodding. "I was used to him being a cop, you know, because I knew he'd always come home. But I still worried about him. Then Batman showed up and I believed that I didn't have to worry anymore, because he was always there to show up and save the day, even against supervillains." Barbara started before a grim expression covered her face. "But now he's gone, and my dad is running himself ragged trying to maintain order in a city that's falling into chaos." And she paused, gulping a bit while squeezing her hands together. "I'm more worried than ever because I'm afraid that one day he won't come home," she said with a worrying and fearful tone, while the redette looked at her in sympathy, knowing this wasn't easy for her. "Babs, listen to me. Your dad is going to be fine. He was fine before Batman showed up, and he'll be fine now. No one knew he worked with Batman, so he won't be targeted," Pamela said, trying to reassure her friend, which seems to work, as she wasn't squeezing her hands too tightly. "As far as anyone else knows, he's just an ordinary police commissioner, and you just have to trust him that he will keep coming home. All right," she added with a smile, with the orangeette nodding and smiling at her friend. "You're right, thank you, Pam," Barbara said, thankful for the reassurance, even though she was still worried that her father was also working himself too hard and neglecting his own needs. Down in GCPD precinct, Commissioner Jim Gordon knew he's seen better days as he sat in his office, as his appearance has grown more ragged with each passing day ever since Batman's death, with his grayish-brown hair being more tousled, as well the developing stubble on his jawline, as he's been neglecting to shave since he's been more focused on trying to control the rising crime rate, a task that's become more difficult each day. Normal criminals he and his officers can handle, but when it comes to metahumans and other supervillains, they didn't stand a chance, even less so, without Batman around to help them. "Guess it's true what they say, you don't know what you have until it's gone," he muttered tiredly while pinching the bridge of his nose, knowing they had come to rely on Batman to help them take down the criminals and supervillains. But now, with him gone, Gotham is falling further and further into chaos. "We could really use you, Batman," he said solemnly as he gazed out the window, knowing he could only hope that no more lunatics show up, and that a miracle will arrive sooner or later. Meanwhile, within an abandoned apartment complex, a young woman standing 5 feet 7 inches in height, with bleach white skin, blue eyes, bleached blonde hair tied up in a pigtail with both ends dyed at the bottom in shades of blue and pink, and bangs framing her face as well, wearing dark red lipstick, pink and blue eyeshadow, and black mascara, as her attire showed off her slender figure, consisting of a black and red crop top, right half black with a red star and left half red with a black diamond, that hugs her ample double D-cup bust, and matching colored fingerless leather gloves and tight spandex booty shorts that hugged her toned ass and hips, and thigh-high sneakers. This woman is Harleen Quinzel, or as she's been known as Harley Quinn. The Joker's ex and everything from partners in crime to relationship partner when he left her in Arkham Asylum after their heist on a yacht as she hoped he would come for her. But all that came crashing down when the Joker finally had his last laugh as the news was broadcasted everywhere. At first, she was saddened at her Puddin's death since, despite being a psychotic lunatic, he had taken her in after liberating her from her dull life, but eventually she accepted that is probably for the best, as those last few years gave her time to think about their relationship and how he had treated her, and while Harley did see the enjoyment in being a criminal, she didn't want to be a lunatic like he was, so the last few years she began to make her own way as a villain, and not as one the dead clown prince wanted her to be. Look out, Gotham, because you'll be getting a new clown that's gonna paint this town red, Harley declared, grinning madly as she smashed the mirror with her new baseball bat. Meanwhile, at the site of where the Joker and Batman both died, a group of people had gathered, as all of them wearing clothes reminiscent of the Joker's own, along with either wearing makeup to look more like the clown psycho or clown masks. As standing in front of the group was a young woman standing 5 feet 4 inches with porcelain skin, long black hair tied in a ponytail with Heim-style bangs with a light blue fringe, green eyes, and light makeup on her face like a basic clown, with her attire consisting of a skin-tight purple bodysuit, which hugs her lean, slender figure from her perky C-cup bust, slim waist, and curvy hips, under a black leather mini-dress with green edging and matching colored gloves, with an X on the right hand and an O on the left, and leather thigh-high boots. This woman is Alexis K., now declaring herself as Punchline, as she was a Joker fangirl that had been obsessed with the since her college trips several years ago, even managing to contact him online to learn more about him, as she was completely devastated when she learned he died, but refused to allow his ideals to die with him, as she had gathered together those who shared her idolization of the Clown Prince, as she'd spent the last few years bringing them together so they could continue his work. Getting the mass group's attention, she began her speech. Tonight, Gotham City will laugh once again as we've formed the newest gang that would put a great big smile on all the citizens' faces. Tomorrow, we shall entertain the masses until they laugh so hard they die. Be ready, my fellow clown in crime, for soon it will be time for the city to put their hands together for the Jokers, she announced, with all the Joker maniacs cheering and howling with twisted laughter, for soon the citizens of Gotham will be dead with amusement. Standing within Gotham Cemetery, a cloaked figure stood in front of Bruce Wayne's tombstone, the only person who kept the peace within the city, until today, that is. You don't know me, but I know you. Hell, I'm probably one of the few that knew you the best. Isn't that ironic? The figure said in a male voice before crouching down and clasped his hands together, as he'd sworn to come here before he began his mission and apologize for what he did. I came here to apologize, since it's my fault you died, and that Gotham has become what it is now, since I only meant to kill the clown, which I feel would have made you angrier than me killing you, since that was the kind of person you were, willing to put your life on the line to save someone, even someone as crazy as the Joker, he said before giving a slight chuckle while looking up towards the night sky, the partial light from the moon revealing the face of a now 21-year-old Naruto, in a strange way. I actually admire that you stuck to your code, no matter what. Maybe I could have even ended up like that once, willing to jump headfirst into danger to save someone, even an enemy, he added, finding the similarities between them at some instance, having sometimes wondered what his life would have been like if Irika had actually cared about him, and he didn't run away. Wondering what happened if he could have been a ninja if he'd gone back to the academy to eventually graduate. Guess he'll never know. But what he did know was that life wasn't the one he's living now. I've spent the last 8 years learning everything you did, trying to be as good as you, maybe even better. But I knew that I'll never be you, since I could never be Batman. I can't be the symbol you were. But I just want you to know that I'll do my best to uphold the legacy you created, and hope you'll understand, Naruto said, looking back at the grave while pulling something out of his pocket before placing it against the grave before he stood up and began leaving, with the moonlight shining upon the object revealing it to be a batarang with red edges, only instead of looking like a signature batarang, the ears were curved and had spikes protruding from the tips of the wings. Walking through the streets of Gotham, a family of 3 exited the cinema as they stuck close together, with the parents keeping their son near them, knowing it's becoming more dangerous just to go outside in Gotham, as the father pointed down towards an empty alleyway which would take them off the streets, as well giving them less of a chance to be attacked by any criminals, as the mother nodded in agreement as they looked around before walking down the alley, none of them noticing a pair of thugs watching them before following. As the family didn't get far before two more thugs walked out from behind a corner pointing guns at them, causing them to stop and stand with shock and fear which grew when the parents looked behind them and saw the other two thugs blocking their exit as they're also armed with guns. Hey, easy, easy, we don't want to know if. The father started to say only to be cut off when one of the thugs smacked him across the face with his gun, knocking him to the ground as well cutting his cheek. Help us! Someone! The mother screamed while backing away against the wall, hugging her son behind her, as she desperately hopes that someone would hear her and help them. No one is coming, lady, one of the thugs taunted with a smug grin as they approached her and her child. There ain't any heroes around to save you, another thug added with a cocky chuckle, which all of the other thugs joined, knowing that they didn't have to worry about Batman stopping them anymore, as well that no one else was brave enough to stand up to the growing number of criminals. We'll be taking those pretty little pearls now, the third thug stated, reaching up and ripping the pearl necklace off the woman's neck, making her flinch, and hugged her son in fear. Leave them alone! The father exclaimed, glaring at the armed thugs while trying to stand up, only to grunt in pain when one of them kicked him back to the ground. Ooh, looks like we got ourselves a hero, boys, one of the thugs said with mock fear as the four of them laughed. Ha ha! There aren't any heroes in Gotham, not after Wayne got blown to pieces. Now hand over your wallet, or the missus will be getting a new hole to breathe through, the first thug threateningly demanded while pointing his gun right at the woman's face, making her whimper as she tried shielding her son from anything that might happen. However, before the thugs could do anything, they all stopped and took notice of a shadow suddenly being cast over them, as it was a very familiar-looking shape as they stood together and looked up at a rooftop, seeing someone dressed like Batman. But rather than be scared of such a sight, they laughed at the figure. Hey freak, did you miss the news? The Bat's dead. One of the thugs mocked as they arrogantly laughed. We aren't scared of that look anymore, added another one as the thugs laughed and jeered at the figure, who remained silent as black smoke began emitting off their body, which got their attention, along with the fact the figure was now starting to float off the rooftop, causing their laughter to soon become replaced with confusion, nervousness, and a slowly returning fear. What the hell? Muttered one of the thugs as they all were confused by what was happening, knowing Batman could never do this. Then, without warning, the figure suddenly transformed into a large demonic bat-like creature as hundreds of bats flew out of its spread-out cape, making the thugs scream in shock and fear, which grew even more when the figure then flew down straight towards them as they let out a demonic shriek as the thugs began backing away and firing at the figure, only to be shocked and further terrified when their bullets seemed to pass right through them as the figure was upon now them, as it grabbed one of the thugs' arms and twisted, making them drop the gun before flipping them over their shoulder and slamming its foot into the thug's elbow, breaking their arm in half, with the thug screaming in agony before being silenced when the figure stomped their foot on his head, crushing his skull and killing him. After seeing its first kill, the figure then turned towards the remaining thugs, who were now officially terrified and shaking in fear, but still managed to raise their guns and continue shooting at the figure, only for them to avoid the bullets until they were standing right in front of the thugs, where they knocked the guns out of their hands and punched one of them right in the neck before proceeding to throw them into a wall before quickly pouncing upon them in a moment as they began slamming him against the ground, placing their foot on the thug's knee before forcefully lifting their leg up, snapping it in half before proceeding to snap their other leg, ensuring the thug was permanently crippled by crushing both his kneecaps as he screamed and cried in pain and agony, to their legs getting forcibly broken. Hearing the sound of an empty gun being fired, the figure looked and narrowed its eyes, seeing the third thug desperately trying to reload his gun, only to then scream in pain when the figure threw a batarang, cutting off his fingers holding the gun before being silenced when another batarang found itself lodged in his neck as he dropped dead. Seeing 3 of the thugs were taken care of, the figure looked for the 4th, only to find him pointing his gun at the woman's head and using her as a shield. Stay be back. I swear I'll blow her head off, the thug exclaimed with a fearful stutter in his voice as he's trying to act tough to hide just how terrified he was from seeing one of his allies being crippled while the other 2 actually killed, which skyrocketed when he finally got a good look at the figure, seeing that they were dressed like Batman, only with the entire costume being a much darker black and gray in color, along with red highlights along the utility belt and a utility harness across the figure's chest, a black bat symbol on the chest, and the fact that they had 2 pistol holsters strapped to their legs, something the old Batman would never use, showing that while they may be dressed like the Bat, they were far more dangerous. The figure narrowed his glowing red eyes at the thug but made no move to disarm him or free his hostage. "You were right before," the figure said in a dark voice, startling the thug, who gulped and tried to steady his breathing. About what?" The thug stuttered as he was shaking in fear as this monster approached him. "The Batman is dead, but what he stood for isn't, because when he fell, a new creature was born, one that would finish what he started, one that would remind trash like you why you should be afraid of the dark, one that does not offer a second chance to those who don't deserve them," the darker Batman look-alike stated as the remaining thug backed away before finding himself against the wall. "You say Batman is dead, but know this, if you pull that trigger, you'll wish it was him here and not me," the look-alike stated, leering through his mask, with the thug hyperventilating at this point as the more smoke began emitting off them. What are you? What the fucking hell are you?" the thug shouted as he's now very terrified at just what kind of a monster he's dealing with. "I am the devil, the one who will finish what the Dark Knight started, for I am Hellbat," the now identified Hellbat exclaimed as hundreds of bats swarmed down, flying around them as the thug screamed at the sudden appearance, and instinctively pulled the trigger, the sound causing the bats to scatter, with the thug becoming both shocked and horrified to see that rather than shooting the woman he had instead shot his still living allies. Seeing that the family was suddenly gone, the thug began looking around in fear and confusion. He began only to scream when the Dark Knight suddenly shot him in both his knees with one of his own pistols before walking up to the downed and crippled thug. "I told you, if you pulled that trigger, you'd wish Batman was here," Hellbat stated, with the thug whimpering as he desperately tried crawling away from this demon. "PL please, the thug tried to beg, only to be interrupted as he dropped dead after being shot through the forehead. "There's your mercy," the Batman look-alike stated as he holstered his pistol before looking at the family, who were huddled together as they were in shock and somewhat scared at what they just witnessed. "Call the police and the hospital," he instructed, since the father will need some treatment for that gash across his face while the bodies needed to be cleaned up, as what just happened tonight will serve as a warning to every criminal of Gotham that he isn't afraid to kill and or cripple them for life. Before any of the family could respond, Hellbat vanished in a swirl of bats, much to their shock, before the father pulled out his phone and began calling the police and hospital to tell them what happened. After disappearing from the alley, Hellbat reappeared on a rooftop before sitting down, letting out a sigh as he pulled off his mask, revealing Naruto with his normally mess of spiky blonde hair now trimmed short, while his skin was a healthy tan. "That went well," he said to himself, pleased at his first night as Hellbat, though he couldn't deny that part of him had been nervous that something would go wrong, or he'd mess up and an innocent bystander could get hurt. But thankfully everything went off without any problems, as he'd been using some subtle genjutsu that he had learned from the Forbidden Scroll with his now improved chakra control, that he had managed to get it down, thanks to the 8 years of agonizing board training, allowing him to use genjutsu to make himself appear as a demonic creature to the thugs. The bats, though, were real, being specially trained bats, something Bruce had done to add on to the mystery of the Batman, with the Uzumaki doing the same and getting his own trained bats, along with the addition of putting special collars on all of them that also had summoning seals inscribed into them, allowing him to summon them through the seals on his costume before desummoning them back to their cave. He'd also used a substitution to switch the mother with one of the other thugs, using the bats as a cover to hide how he was able to do it, along with having created a special bat shunshin, having been made specifically for when he was Hellbat, with all of it helping to sell the illusion that he wasn't human, like Batman, that he was a different kind of monster altogether, as he was pleased that it went off without any problems, as he's now feeling more confident in his abilities now that they were actually field-tested. But the night's far from over, Naruto mused as he put his mask back on, knowing he still had one target left, one of the most infamous villains in all of Gotham, one that's nearly being on par with Joker in terms of crimes he's committed, and that villain is Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, one of the most dangerous supervillains in Gotham, as well also being the owner of one of the most famous casino and nightclub in the city, the Iceberg Lounge, as the Whiskered Man knew that the money he's gained from working as a henchman wouldn't last forever, and that he will need a large, steady income of money, not just for his mission, but also his own livelihood as well, and the Iceberg Lounge would not only bring him the income he needs, but also provide him a place to use as his main base of operations, along with the chance to take out another supervillain, as he's already made a plan to take over the Iceberg Lounge, as all that was left was taking care of Penguin. And I know exactly where you are, Penguin, Hellbat stated before running off the rooftop and gliding across the city towards the Iceberg Lounge, using both his cape and grapple gun to keep himself in the air, before arriving at the club and began systematically taking out the Penguin's henchmen. Having become familiar with the guard schedules and patrols from his time working for the bird-themed businessman, so he knew where and when they would be, as he began taking them out one by one, until he arrived at the Penguin's office and kicked the door in before dodging to the side to avoid being shot at by the Penguin's trick umbrella as he threw a batarang that stabbed into his hand. ARG fish paste. The Penguin swore as he cried out in pain as he dropped his umbrella, giving the bat-themed Uzumaki an opening as he fired his grapple gun at him, the claw end lodging itself into his shoulder, before yanking him forward and slamming his fist into the bird-looking man's face before wrapping the cord around his neck before throwing the grapple gun up and over the rafters and pulled it forward, lifting Penguin off the ground, choking him. Yo, cough, your SSU, awk, suppose Tita to BB, wheeze, dead. The gentleman-dressed villain coughed out as he's desperately trying to loosen the cord around his neck as his face was slowly turning blue from the lack of air. I'm not Batman Cobblepot, I'm something much worse. Something the criminal scum of Gotham will soon learn. Not that you'll be alive to see it, Hellbat stated as he began pulling the Penguin higher into the air and hooking the grapple gun onto the door before exiting the office to clear out the rest of the club, leaving the businessman to choke to death as his body went limp while dangling in the air. Breaking news this morning. Last night a family of 3 had been cornered and mugged on their way home from the cinema, only for their attackers to get a surprise of their own when what witnesses described as a bat in the shape of a man arrived and brutally crippled and even killed the muggers, with this mysterious stranger having introduced himself as Hellbat, the successor of the deceased Batman. Only it seems that Hellbat doesn't have the same stance of no killing, as not long after the bodies of Oswald Cobblepot, aka the Penguin, and all his men were found within the Iceberg Lounge, after an anonymous tip given to the police. It's them, isn't it? Kate asked solemnly as she and Alfred watched the morning news giving the story about this Hellbat, and what they've done, along with showing an artist's rendering of him as well. I believe so, Madam Kate, Alfred replied, with both of them knowing that whoever Hellbat was, it was the same person responsible for Bruce's death, showing that they were indeed taking up his mantle as the protector of Gotham. Only it seemed that they weren't held back by the same no-killing rule that Bruce was, though either of them could say they were surprised by this given their plan to kill the Joker as well, which had unfortunately backfired as it had also led to his death. Are you all right, Alfred? The redhead asked, knowing the butler took her cousin's death the hardest, and now seeing someone wearing his suit, while killing or crippling criminals without hesitation, she wanted to make sure he was all right or needed time to himself. I will be all right, Madam Kate, the elderly butler assured while looking down at his tea. While Master Bruce's death still pains me, I cannot fault the one responsible who merely wished to put an end to a madman. I only hope that in their method of dealing with crime, they are not consumed by it. Otherwise they may become the very thing they sought to destroy, he explained before looking back at the depiction of Hellbat, knowing that his former ward had walked that line every day since becoming Batman, and it was only his compassion and mercy that stopped him from falling into that dark abyss, as now they could only hope that Hellbat can control that darkness, or he'll be consumed by it. Meanwhile at Gotham University, 2 friends were also watching the news report. Well, it looks like Gotham has a new Bat vigilante. One who isn't afraid to put criminals down permanently, Pamela stated as she and Barbara walked through the halls of their school, talking about the appearance of Hellbat, which was what basically everyone was discussing. So it seems, Barbara trailed as she saw the footage of several body bags being loaded into an ambulance. Though he seems to be a little brutal, she added, feeling very uneasy about this new Gotham hero, with her fellow Redette nodding in agreement with both of them, having felt a little disturbed at just what Hellbat had done to those muggers, along with Penguin and his men, as they honestly weren't sure how many people have seen this. But it's very likely a lot were being traumatized at what happened, though at the same time, they couldn't fault Hellbat's methods and mentality, knowing that ever since Batman died, criminals have become bolder and less afraid of repercussions, with this new Bat-themed vigilante simply reminding them that their actions do have consequences, some more lethal than others, as the Orangeette was especially aware of this since her father is a cop, so she's aware of the death penalty, and that cops were sometimes forced to kill a criminal while in the line of duty. Still, I wish he'd work inside the law like Batman did. If he takes things into his own hands, like killing or crippling criminals, then he's more likely willing to become a criminal himself, she stated with concern in her voice, hoping that Hellbat will change to being more like Batman since Gotham did need a protector like him, but not one who goes around killing every criminal he finds. And it was that same thinking that led to lunatics like the Joker being allowed to roam free, Pamela countered, crossing her arms. If Batman had just put that clown down years ago, he might still be alive. Now we actually have someone who's willing to get the job done, she stated, being more agreeable with Hellbat's more brutal methods, knowing it was finally time someone started putting lunatic criminals in the ground. Hopefully, he'll also take down those greedy monsters who are killing and suffocating our planet, all just to make a quick buck. She mentally added to herself, since a mass majority of Gotham's companies are but a fraction to the rest of those poisoning the earth with mass deforestation, as well polluting the soil from their careless waste dumping. Hearing her friend caused Barbara to give her a worried look, as she's not sure how to feel about her being okay with Hellbat's methods, while also being well aware of her views of protecting nature as well as the vast habitats and ecosystems that it provides. Anyway, I gotta go since my internship at Wayne Tech will be starting soon, and I don't want to be late, the Redette said, waving farewell to her friend, which she returned. See ya, Pam, but be careful, and don't stay out too late, the Orangeette said with concern, knowing that it was especially unsafe to be out at night, and didn't want anything happening to her friend. Okay, Mom, I'll also be sure to clean up my room while I'm at it, Pamela jokingly said with a smirk, while Barbara sighed but knew her friend would listen to her. Meanwhile, within GCPD, Jim Gordon was watching the news broadcast about Hellbat. Well, it's good to see someone is making sure your legacy lives on, Bruce, he muttered, feeling a little glad that his old friend's legacy was being continued, but at the same time worried about the presence of a far more brutal version of Batman running around. A version who wasn't afraid to put criminals in critical condition or in a morgue. For now, he'll see if this Hellbat really wants to clean up crime in Gotham, or if he'll eventually turn into another maniac that he has to deal with. Meanwhile, at the Iceberg Lounge, an auction was being held to determine who would become the new owner, with most of the bidders consisting of various mobsters eager to claim the late Penguin's former base, as well as a popular casino and nightclub, for their own businesses, with the current bidding price being at $500,000, with no one so far making another bid. $800,000. A male voice called out, much to the shock of everyone as they've turned to see a man who looks to be in his 30s with combed-back brown hair and brown eyes with a slight tan skin tone, as he's dressed in a black tailor-made suit, while standing next to him were two stunning women. The first woman was a stunning beauty with porcelain skin, short whitish blonde hairstyle and a pixie fringe, and brown eyes, as she was slightly taller than the man, standing 5 feet 8 inches in height, with a curvaceous figure which was enhanced by her white cocktail dress showing her firm supple D-cup bust and reaching down to her mid-thighs, showing off her slim hips, firm rear, and luscious legs, which were covered by her fishnet stockings, as she also wearing stiletto heels along with earrings, bracelets, and a jade rhombus necklace nested within her cleavage. The second woman was also very attractive, with caramel-toned skin, black hair tied in a ponytail, and black eyes under a pair of rectangular-rimmed glasses, as she's also taller than the man, standing 5 feet 9 inches in height, as she a slender curved figure, as she's dressed in a black and white pinstripe dress, exposing a healthy portion of her ample perky double C-cup bust, as it also reaches down to her mid-thighs, drawing attention to her cavia hips, larger supple rear, and equally luscious and toned legs. These two beauties are Tracy Buxton and her partner Candy, and both of them used to work for the now deceased Cobblepot years ago, as the man held both of their hands, knowing that there were some uneasiness they both were feeling from just being here. $800,000. The auctioneer exclaimed, stuttering in shock before clearing their throat. 800, I have 800. Do I hear 805? 805. They called, looking around to see if anyone would raise the bid. 800 going once, 800 going twice, and sold, the auctioneer exclaimed, banging their gavel as the man and two women walked up to the stage. What's your name, sir? They asked, wanting and needing the name of the new owner so they can file the paperwork. Mel Strum, at your service, introduced the now identified Mel as he gave the auctioneer a short bow. All right then, Mr. Strum, congratulations on being the new owner of the Iceberg Lounge. the auctioneer said with the brown-haired man nodding as the two shook hands before the latter turned his attention along with his beautiful assistants looking over the crowd as 6 mobsters walked up to the stage glaring at him. "He ain't gonna be the owner for long. I suggest you leave now, and forget you were ever here, Gramps," one of the mobsters threatens, with all of them reaching for their hidden weapons while Tracy and Candy step back knowing things are about to get messy. Seeing this, Mel just smiled and narrowed his eyes. "Oh my, it seems some trash has found its way onto my new property. I'll just clean that up, right now," he half-heartedly said with his smile gaining a sinister edge as he held up his gloved hands and made mocking hand gestures to anger the group. Before the mobsters could pull their triggers, they suddenly found themselves bound by metal wires before seeing that they were attached to the man they've threatened. Gloves as he gave a few flicks of his fingers and yanks of his arms, causing the wires to tear them apart, much to everyone's shock and fear at seeing the pile of blood and torn body parts as they slowly and warily turned their attention back to the new owner, who just merely smiled as if he hadn't just killed 6 men. "I do apologize for causing quite a scene, but I do not take such idle threats lightly," Mel apologized as a few members of the crowd either puked and or fainted upon seeing such a butchering, while Tracy and Candy were hardly fazed, having seen this kind of stuff. "Now then, does anyone else have any complaints about my ownership of this fine establishment?" he asked rhetorically, with those still conscious rapidly shaking their heads, not wanting to get on the bad side of this mysterious man. After the auction had ended and everyone had left, Mel, along with the stunning blonde and brunette, had gone to his new office before being enveloped in a cloud of smoke, revealing himself to really be Naruto. Under a hench, as he's really changed over the years, as he now stands 5 feet 10 inches as his outfit changed from a suit to an orange short-sleeved shirt over a black long-sleeved undershirt and blue jean pants. "So boss, how does it feel owning the club of a dead bird?" Tracy said, her voice laced with her Cockney accent, before sitting on the desk crossing one leg over the other, an action that was also mimicked by her partner. "Sure feels strange being back here after all these years." Candy sighed, leaning back a little, knowing this place will be running more legit now that the penguin's dead. "It will do nicely. Just one thing left to do," Naruto said before cutting his palm, letting the blood drip out before going through hand signs as the blood began forming into a complete clone of himself, which then transformed into his Mel personal, as he just created a blood clone jutsu, something he learned from the Forbidden Scroll, with it being more durable than a regular shadow clone, as having a functioning self-sustaining chakra network so it wouldn't dispel by running out of chakra, since he won't be the public owner of the Iceberg Lounge, as well not having suspicions cast onto him if he suddenly vanished to act as Hellbat. And with that little display, it won't be long before the entire criminal underworld knows the new owner isn't squeaky clean, he thought, as this would help him with his other goal, besides owning the Iceberg Lounge, as he'll also be buying and selling information to the highest bidder as another cover, since he'll be using that information in completing his missions, whether it's getting information on various criminals and supervillains, or luring them into traps with said information, along with the lounge serving as a counterintelligence against anyone who would be looking too deep into who Hellbat is, or what would be going on here. As the Uzumaki began creating several more blood clones, all while having them transform into guards, waiters, and other staff members, so he didn't have to worry about hiring anyone, or someone infiltrating the staff, he never noticed Tracy and Candy giving each other a sly grin as he slumped in his office chair, breathing as well, feeling lightheaded from all the blood he used, as his healing factor began recreating more as all the disguised clones exited the office before going to do their respected tasks. "Phew, now that's taken care of, time to set up my own Batcave," Naruto said, about to make some shadow clones to begin setting up his own Batcave under the lounge and begin working on making tunnels for the vehicles to get in and out of without being seen or tracked, since he's now revealed Hellbat to Gotham. So it's time to begin setting up his base of operations. However, before he could even get up, Candy and Tracy pushed him against the wall, surprising him before they both kissed him heatedly, with the former slipping her hands under his shirts while the latter cupped his covered privates, making him gasp as both stunning women began removing his shirts, revealing his lean muscular torso as well chiseled pecs and abs. "Not so fast, boss, you're off the clock for today," the blonde cooed with a sexy grin as she cupped him again. "Business hours are over, so now it's happy hour, as we've had a deal." Handsome, the dark-skinned brunette added with a purr, as well as a seductive tilt of her glasses as she and her partner removed their dresses, revealing their sexy underwear before pressing themselves against his body as they trail licks, kisses, hand rubs, and gropes around his body and muscles. Tracy, Candy, couldn't this wait until after I get things set up? Naruto grunted, fighting back his moans as his recreated blood was rapidly rushing to the large tent within his pants as he met these two in a bar on his way to Gotham, as he remembered them working for the Penguin before going clean, as he wanted to recruit them given their experience running the businessman's deals and services. No more waiting, smooch. Need big fella's company, Candy moaned, kissing his neck as she and her partner undid his pants, taking them as well his boxers off, revealing his fully hard 14-inch cock, which both women gazed upon hungrily. Hello, big boy. Love seeing you again, Tracy sexually cooed as she and her partner kneeled down as they began assaulting his gun with licks, kisses, sucks, and strokes, as both women has become addicted to the Uzumaki's cock after a drunken threesome that night, as he was way better than their previous boss with 3 major reasons, as he was better looking to their eyes, has a much bigger size to reach all the good spots, and immense stamina to continue fucking for hours on end until they were unconscious. Feeling the two sexy beauties' combined efforts, the whiskered blonde couldn't hold back anymore, as he loudly groaned, as he blew his load, coating their faces and buxom bosoms with his cum as his spurts lasted a few moments, as he took some deep breaths once his gun finished unloading its ammo, as both assistants happily consumed his thick cream before cleaning each other, licking and sucking the other's tits and face as they went into a heated makeout session. Watching his two partners making out awaken his demonic lust as he grabbed both women by their waists and lifted them up with his arms, causing them to squeal in excitement as he pushed them on top of the desk. Both of you strip. Now, he deeply growls in a commanding voice and demonic tone, causing lustful/fearful shimmers to run up their spines. As you order, Fox boss. You're the dominant one for tonight, the curvaceous blonde cooed as they both took off their bras, letting their breasts bob and sway. Time for you to check in for the night shift, the caramel-skinned beauty seductively added as they both sexually removed their bottoms, exposing their sexy asses as they both shared sexy grins, watching as their new employer's cock twitched madly, as they both knew that this threesome was going to be better than last time. It wasn't long as loud squeals, cries, moans, and hollers of pleasure filled the office as the Uzumaki laid claim to the Penguin's former business, as he gave the bird-themed villain the bird by fucking within his former office along with his former assistants, as he banged them against the wall, plowed them on top of his desk, even pound them upon the floor, as their session carried on through the night.